Hello, buddy. My name is Colin, and today I'm going to be doing a video. This time I will be ranking all 23 Marvel Cinematic Universe films. I'm a huge fan of the MCU. Growing up, I read a lot of Marvel comics, and these are also my favorite superheroes of all time. Spider-Man's definitely my favorite Marvel hero. I'm just such a big fan of Marvel, and Spider-Man Far From Home just got released, so I decided it's time for me to rank all 23 MCU films. Now, this list, I'll be honest, it moves around every few weeks. Like, some stuff goes up, some stuff goes down. Nothing will go, like, from 18 to 1, but, you might see some stuff different than rankings I've done in the past, and even this ranking might not hold up in the future, but that's okay, because this is my ranking right now, and it feels pretty tight. So, as you can see, this is my whole list right here. 23 to 1. I don't want you guys to just, waste time just going throughout the whole video trying to look for the ranking. If you just want to see the ranking, then this is it. But I'm going to go through giving reasons for each one. So this video will probably be 20 minutes or so. Now, coming down all the way at the bottom is my number 23, Thor: The Dark World. This movie's kind of crappy. Malekith is a bitch of a villain. It's just incredibly boring. The humor does not work in this movie. There are some decent effects, and Thor and Loki are good. But that's really what saves the movie. Just, it's inconsistent, doesn't really fit the Thor lore. Just so much in this movie does not work at all. I don't hate the movie, because I don't hate any Marvel movie, but this movie is just dumb, and it's forgettable. I don't even remember. I saw it recently. I don't even remember what happens in it, because I was just so bored watching it. I really wanted to turn it off when I was watching it. Alright, number 22, Iron Man 2. Now, this isn't a bad movie. It's just a very dumb, meh Marvel movie. A lot of Avengers setup is in it. Tony Stark, there's some decent development for him, and it explains his relationship with his father, so that's nice. But Scarlett Johansson, you can tell if she feels very uncomfortable in the role here. The action really hasn't aged well. The final battle's decent, but Whiplash is a bad villain. Justin Hammer was fine. He just was kind of unlikable. And just a cliche Marvel villain. It's just, this isn't really one I ever like to rewatch because, it's really boring, dumb, and not a lot of fun. So, 22. 21, Captain Marvel. I did not like Captain Marvel. I gave it a 1.5 out of 4 stars in my original review. There was some stuff I did like in the movie, like Ben Mendelsohn as Talos. I thought he was kind of cool, even though they didn't really use him that much in the movie. Samuel Jackson, the effects for his face look great, and the performance is really good. But again, just the writing for them isn't that good. I hate the way that he loses his eye to a cat. And yeah, I get that Goose has powers, but still, that's kind of dumb. He just loses it to a cat that scratches him. I mean, come on. And I just don't like the way this film, it kind of messes with the lore of the Kree and the Skrulls. I like that they're trying to do something different, but it's just feels so wasted. And they can still use the Skrulls in the future, but, I don't know. I also think that Brie Larson, she does a decent job in the role. I kind of like her snark, but she doesn't feel like Captain Marvel from the comics at all, and Captain Marvel's honestly really awesome in the comics. That kind of sucks. And the final battle to this movie is just pathetic. Alright, number 20, Thor. I kind of do like the original Thor. It is very boring. A lot of elements in it do not work. I like the stuff on Asgard. I think Loki's a good villain, even though he's not great in here. But there are some decent performances, like Chris Hemsworth as Thor. He doesn't fit into the role as well as he does in the other movies, but he does a fine job. This is, again, a movie I just don't really have the urge to rewatch, because once this movie gets to Earth, the pacing, it just falls apart. And again, a lot of the humor in this film just does not work. It could be worse, it's very easy to make Thor, a really bad movie because it's kind of hard to adapt from the comics. But it's fine. It's nothing special. Number 19, The Incredible Hulk. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Hulk, and I'm a huge fan of Edward Norton. I thought Edward Norton actually did do a solid job as the Hulk. This movie is just so forgettable and pretty boring. There's not really any, fun Marvel elements about it. I think that the Abomination, he's okay. Tim Roth did a fine job. It's just, Again, and it feels so disconnected from the MCU now that we have Mark Ruffalo that this film feels so forgettable and really falls flat in many ways. It does have an awesome Hulk smash moment though that kind of saves it on rewatch, but there's nothing really that special about this movie. Okay, number 18, Ant-Man the Wasp. I was very disappointed with this movie when I originally saw it, and I still am. This film does do really good things as an Ant-Man movie. Like, I think it handles the quantum realm really well, and I think all the performances are pretty solid. Paul Rudd is obviously great, and Luis is really funny. Lots of really funny jokes, which really save this upon rewatch, because the story and the pacing are so boring, but the humor and charisma of the actors is really what makes the film a little more rewatchable. The villain, Ghost, the writing for her I thought was solid, but the actress that played her I thought didn't do a good job at all. Kind of like Lawrence Fishburne in the role. I don't know. It just didn't add much to the MCU, and it was just kind of another fun, dumb Marvel movie. And it just plays it very safe, and it knows what it is. Like, it just plays by the Marvel formula and doesn't really take any risks. And that's why I kind of am not that big a fan of it. It's solid. I enjoy parts of it. It's just not one of the better MCU movies. Number 17, Iron Man 3. When I saw this movie back when it came out, I did not like it one bit. That Mandarin twist is bad. You bring in Ben Kingsley, one of the best actors working today, and you have him play the Mandarin, the best Iron Man villain, and you set up a stupid twist that just does not work. It also messes up the Extremist storylines, and it's very boring at points, but I do like the arc that Shane Black gives Tony in this movie with fear and his PTSD, because some of that stuff does connect to some of the actions Tony makes in Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. So that's what this movie has going. The development for Tony Stark is really good. And even Tony's performance in it is still really good. But Guy Pearce was fine, just like the Extremist stuff, even with Pepper, like when she was in the yoga pants. Oh my god, that was so cheesy. A lot of the humor doesn't work. Some of it does. The action is honestly really good in this movie. Like the airplane scene, that's incredible. That's probably my favorite action scene out of the Iron Man movies. Just that the story doesn't really fit. It's not really a good Marvel movie or a good Iron Man movie, but it's a good Shane Black, Tony Stark movie. Yeah. Number 16, Ant-Man. I was very satisfied with this film, surprisingly, when I saw it, because it had so many production difficulties with Edgar Wright. This film would have been much better if it was directed by Edgar Wright, because Edgar, he knocks it out of the park every time he makes a movie. Hot Fuzz, Baby Driver, etc. They're all fantastic. So it's kind of disappointing this movie wasn't better. It does a great job introducing Ant-Man as a character, and it has a little bit of depth with his relationship with his daughter, but Yellow Jacket, very cliched villain that, for me, does not work. And, again, like, all these performances, they're really funny. The action's very lackluster, and it is one I could rewatch. Like, all these above, they're all pretty good movies that are rewatchable. This one doesn't, I don't really get anything out of it, because, again, it does play it pretty safe by the Marvel formula. But, it's another fun, not dumb, but just safe Marvel movie. Number 15, Doctor Strange. Okay, I take it back. This film really isn't that rewatchable. It drags several points at time. The performances are really good. I really like Ancient One and Wong. I think Benedict Cumberbatch does a great job in the role as Doctor Strange. Because Doctor Strange, I love him in the comics, and they really nail central parts of his character. The visuals in this movie are insane, very beautifully shot, and just the way the Jack Kirby style, like, they really nailed that era into this movie. Caecilius is a really weak villain, and apart from that final battle with Dormammu, which was awesome, I found the action to be pretty lackluster, and the humor in this film feels very forced, and it does not work. They had, like, one Beyonce joke that just felt really out of place, and that's why the Marvel quipping, it's not something that really works for Doctor Strange, because he's meant to be a more serious character, but I do like Benedict's arrogance that he brings to the character. Number 14, Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, I do honestly really enjoy this movie. It is a pretty rewatchable film for me, but it's kind of bland because it's handling so many different stories at a time, and it feels so cluttered. Like, Ultron was a good villain, but you didn't give him any motivation or depth. The performance was good, but you need a little more than that. And that's why I think they really failed with Age of Ultron. And I don't think that Age of Ultron's a bad movie because it is still a good movie. It does have lots of rewatchable parts of it. I do like the chemistry between all the actors and the stuff when they're drinking at the party. I think that's great. Well, all the actors have really good chemistry together. It just doesn't feel as good or as fresh as the original Avengers, and you can feel a lack of enthusiasm from Joss Whedon. And he even has said that he knows he didn't make a great movie, but I think he did make a good movie because this film's got lots of nice, really good character moments, especially with Hawkeye, and his arc in this film is incredible. Lots of nice setup for Endgame and Infinity War. And Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, like, they just didn't explain them well, and that's why it came off as so just kind of uninteresting at times. But it still is a fun Marvel movie, even though it is a little bit bloated. It's disappointing, but it's good. Number 13, Captain America the First Avenger. This movie is really good. Not quite great for me. I really, really like it. It was the first Marvel movie I ever saw in theaters. I think Hugo Weaving does a solid job as the Red Skull, even though I think he's a little too over the top for Red Skull. Like in the comics, Red Skull is a little more depth, and he doesn't really bring anything new to the character. But Chris Evans does a really great job in the role. Like the CGI that makes him look younger, it's great. And it really establishes who Steve Rogers and Captain America is as a character, and his relationship with Peggy in this movie is great. I don't really like how this film just montages through World War II because you miss so many great action scenes. Like Wonder Woman is a much better superhero movie that takes place in World War One or two or whatever. And yeah, the action in this movie is kind of weak. His suit doesn't really look that good. It's really cheesy at times, but the ending is really strong. So like, good movie, just not quite great. Definitely the weakest of the Cap movies, but I really enjoyed the first Avenger. All right, now I love each and every one of these top 12. Number 12, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. A lot of people were disappointed with Volume 2. I wasn't. I loved it. The first half, it's got some stuff that doesn't work. There are lots of tonal inconsistencies, and there's some character choices I'm not big on, and the film even structurally doesn't work at times. Ego was a good villain. I didn't think he was a great villain. I liked his motives, and Kurt Russell gave a good performance, but kind of sucks as he's another Marvel villain that just wants to. He's big on like universe domination. It's just kind of like we've seen it before, but I love the emotional moments in this movie. Like I like the pairing of Rocket and Yondu. Yondu has the best character arc in this entire movie. The moment where he's like, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all," that was epic. And his death scene and ending, I thought that was incredible. Easily one of the best endings to a Marvel movie. Very emotionally powerful. And this movie, upon rewatch, it really puts me in the feels. And sure, a lot of the jokes do not work, but the action and the visuals in this movie is great. And I love it. I don't get why some people were like, I get why somebody's disappointed with this movie because it is not as good as the first Guardians, but I don't get why some people don't like it and say it's like one of the worst Marvel movies. Like, that's just way too far. All right, number 11, Spider-Man Homecoming. I love Spider-Man Homecoming. Tom Holland does such a good job in the role as Spider-Man, and Michael Keaton was one of the best villains in the MCU as the Vulture. I really like him in that role. I like the relationship between Peter and Tony in this movie. It's kind of like a father-son thing, even though they don't touch on Uncle Ben. Some of the action does feel a little bit lackluster, and the movie kind of drags a bit at times because it really lacks any emotional stakes. But it's still a really fun movie. I still love Spider-Man Homecoming, even though it's not one of my personal favorites. Number 10, Spider-Man Far From Home. I definitely did have my problems with Spider-Man Far From Home. It dragged a little bit in the first act, but I think it really picked up fast. The whole cast was great. J.B. Smoove was so funny in this movie, and I thought all the high school characters really funny. Again, Tom Holland, like, he really just developed in this role. I liked a lot of the tributes to Tony. Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio was so good. Easily one of the best villains in the MCU. And the action, I think, in this movie really improved over the last one, making for not quite the best Spider-Man movie, but I'd say top 3. It's up there with Spider-Verse and Spider-Man 2. I really love Spider-Man Far From Home. All right, number 9, the original Iron Man, the one that started it all. Jon Favreau made the MCU in a cave with a box of scraps. Robert Downey Jr., he is so good as Iron Man. He basically is Iron Man at this point because he just nails everything about the role so well. And even though the reason this movie isn't higher is because I think Jeff Bridges does a good job in the role, but Obadiah is a pretty cliched villain, but that's forgivable because at the time this was the first MCU movie, so it wasn't really a cliche yet. And the film does drag a bit in the second half with kind of a little bit of a dumb final battle, but it ends really strong with Tony saying, "I am Iron Man." That like blew everybody away. I mean, Iron Man just, you have to at least appreciate this film for giving birth to the MCU. It's such an accomplishment for what Robert Downey Jr. has done with the role and just elevated everything that the MCU is today. It's incredible. All right, now these top 8 are my favorite Marvel movies and some of my favorite comic book movies of all time. Number 8, Black Panther. You guys know I loved Black Panther. It was one of my top 15 or 20 favorite movies of last year and probably one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. I love Black Panther so much. Killmonger is like the second best villain in the MCU. Michael B. Jordan does such a good job in the role. I like his compelling arc and his motivations. I love the whole cast, the cinematography, the music. It's all beautiful. Like this movie, so many shots of Wakanda. Like I just want to screenshot it and put it on my wall because it's just so beautiful. Black Panther is so good. The reason it doesn't hold up as well now, I think, is because some of the CGI, especially since I've seen it multiple times since the theater, some of the CGI really isn't that good, if I'm being honest. Like the action on the cliff scenes, but I don't know. I think the movie definitely should have used more practical effects. Also, the third act can get really predictable since you know that T'Challa, he's obviously going to come back. So, yeah. Number 7, Thor Ragnarok. I adore Thor Ragnarok. A lot of people have problems with the humor and the portrayal of Thor in this movie. I don't. I love the arc they give Thor. I love all these characters and the performances. Valkyrie was great. The Grandmaster, the Hulk, Loki, Hela, I thought was a great villain. Kate Blanchett really nailed the role. And this movie is just gut busting, hilarious, and it's just so much fun. And I understand that some people might have wanted a darker portrayal of Thor, and there might be some tonal inconsistencies at times. Like, I know some people don't like Korg, but I honestly really like Korg. I think he's really funny. But yeah, I don't really need a serious Thor movie. And this film was actually, I found it pretty climactic in the third act. So I thought it did a good job of balancing its drama and its humor, in my opinion. And for me, it's easily one of the best in the MCU. Number 6, The Avengers. This movie changed superhero movies forever, brought all these characters together. It was one of the greatest movie-going experiences I have ever had. Just seeing all those characters together in that one shot, when you see them fighting the Chitauri, it is so epic, and I get chills just thinking about it. The music, the dialogue, and the jokes are so funny, and the acting's so good. There might be certain parts of the film that haven't aged as well, like some of the effects, and we definitely have seen the concept done better with Infinity War and Endgame, but the Avengers, you just have to appreciate what Joss Whedon was able to do with this movie. Number 5, Captain America Civil War. I love the way the Russos handle these characters in this film, the way it develops them. Spider-Man and Black Panther are fantastic, but the development with Tony and Cap, you really feel compelled to join one side, but I'm compelled. Originally I was Team Cap, but Tony brings up some great points in this film. And that airport battle, man. That is one of the best action scenes ever. You also have that epic fight at the end between Tony, Cap, and Bucky. Just some really emotional stuff in here. And the stakes and the way this was such a game changer for the MCU at the time. Because it's really different from the Civil War comic. And I think that risk really landed. I also think Zemo is a really underrated villain with a compelling motivation. I really, really love Zemo. Number 4, Captain America the Winter Soldier. This film is a masterpiece. Just the espionage thriller aspects of it work so well, and it works so well as a Captain America movie. I love the way it handles the Winter Soldier storyline. The Winter Soldier as a villain in this movie is great. Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce is also great. And Scarlett Johansson, she is really good in this movie. Love her. I just love the whole cast. The action is incredible. Just the fighting choreography. It's so good, and this movie's so kick-ass. A lot of people have this as their favorite, and I'm not going to argue that, because these top 3, personally to me, just emotionally resonate with me more. But I'd say from a filmmaking level, this is probably the best one and the most tightly written. Now, before I get into my top 3, guys, please let me know your list in the comments. If you've made it this far, you're probably really interested. And you can at least put one of your favorites or how you list your favorites. So, number 3, Avengers Infinity War. I adored Infinity War. It's like my second or third favorite movie of last year. This movie just works so well. as a comic movie because it had so much riding on it and it handles all these characters so well. And it probably has the best memorable moments out of any of these Marvel movies, like that opening scene where Thanos kills Loki and Thor. Just the music in that scene is epic. The battle between Iron Man, Doctor Strange, the Guardians, and Thanos on Titan, that was incredible. Thanos killing everybody, just kicking all their asses, and then he looks up at that rock. Thor entering Wakanda. This movie just has so many great moments. The action and the humor just mix so well, and the Russos handle all these characters so well. Number two, Guardians of the Galaxy. This film surprised everyone. Definitely surprised me. I love the depth that these characters have. It is so funny. It is emotional and a little dark at times. The action is great. I love Guardians of the Galaxy so much. A lot of people like to say that Rowan's a bad villain. I don't think he's a bad villain. I think he's okay. You know, he's a little cliched, but many Marvel movie villains are cliched. And Guardians was my favorite Marvel movie for almost 5 years. But then 2 months ago, I saw my new favorite Marvel movie, my number one, Avengers Endgame. Guys, I adore this film so much. The way it handles all these characters, it's very emotional. It's deep. Like the first half of this movie, it is really just sad and hard to watch at times. But the action in this movie is so well done. I love the time travel elements of it. I just have a lot of nostalgia for it already because the way it just goes back to other movies and the way the Russos handle the characters and the MCU here, like it couldn't have been done better. I mean, Thanos is so good in this movie. Oh, I just adore Endgame so much. Tony's death really resonated with me, and that shot where you have all the heroes fighting Thanos' armies, that is great. I mean, Endgame is just a masterpiece of a film. It is personally my favorite film of 2019 thus far. It's between that and Us. I'd say Us is probably the better movie, but as a Marvel fan, Endgame just put me in the emotional feels, and I adore it from beginning to end. So, guys, that was my Marvel ranking. Please let me know down below, how do you rank all the Marvel movies? And please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for future Marvel content, and to share this video with your friends. Thank you all for watching, and I will hasta la vista.